welcome to Done Some More Moving Dirt. I got the third border level just in. I just like this little old short one right here. This will be the next side that we do. They're a little bit longer. They go all the way from them poles up back to the ditch. I still got to figure this out, how to keep this water out of this road, but I had trouble with the end of this one because the last 300 foot was leaning, had half a foot side fall in it, and the two below it didn't have no trouble at all. And I guess I was bumping up into this hill here, and then the water's got to drain out the end, and I think it's most of it is you're looking at it all wrong, and you're going into a hill with one side and the other side is automatically low because that's the way the water's got to drain out of here. And you get a little heavy on one side and you're afraid to dig on the other side. But anyway, I think I got it. When I get turned around when we're not looking in the sun, I'll show you what I was talking about. And that berm, them borders look real tall, but that's just an illusion when you check the height of them. One's just 1.5 foot tall, and they look, when you just stand back looking at them, they look like they're 3 foot tall. But kind of like a terrace. Now I have built terraces 3.5, 4 foot tall, and they look like they're 10 foot tall after you build them. It's just, you measure your height from the bottom of the channel up to the top of the ridge, and that's what fools you. The steeper the hill, they're not as tall as they look. But the steep part of this is the end grade and not the side grade, or it wasn't till that one. So this is from the low end looking up. That's number 1, and this is number 2, and they weren't too bad, but this one right here is the one I had a little trouble with yesterday evening, and I got it before I quit. But with that shadow on that berm there, it makes it look like it's 3 foot tall, but it's not. And this one's the same way. There's one place up there is just a little over 1 foot tall, and it's just, but they're good and wide, so that really, them borders are not supposed to be. I recommend about, I think it's 3 foot, either 2 foot wide on the bottom or 3 foot, no slope, just natural fall, and 1 foot tall, and that just don't last. These will last a long time, even though they're not very tall. They're wider than what they need to be, so they're not going to go down with cattle walking on them and everything. But this was the one that I worked on the last 300 foot of this. Was real high on this side over here and real low on this side, and I built it the same way that I built the other two. But then you're starting to go up this hill, and where we're sitting now is where the water's got to drain out of them and come down to this corner, and I got to keep it off of this road. That's why I'm putting a little dirt here. So you had 2 different slopes. You had this slope here level side to side, and then it had to fall off in this ditch with the slope running down here. But anyway, I just cut some here and rolled it across and filled that, and it's level now, side fall. So all of them are just basically level from side to side. Now you've got plenty of fall from the outlet into the inlet, but what you don't want it to do is go to one side and run down it. You'd rather it go to the middle, and then it's more apt to spread out than it is if, as soon as it comes out, if one side's leaning or one side's high, whatever, you don't want it going from side to side. So I think It's either 80 to 90 foot bottom. It probably was a little bit more, but I lost some with my berm. But so I'm fixing to start working on this one right here and get it before I go over there, and then I'll finish touching up everything in the middle. So thanks for watching this channel. Let y'all say some of that after a bit. Bye. watching Dunsmore Moving Dirt. Just got this first border on the other side of that gravel road. This is the west field, and we've already got the east field done. This is calling this number 9. I'm building them backwards, and the next one will be 8, 7, 6, 5. Just got it all dressed off. It looks pretty good. I've got my level set up. I'm gonna go down there and check my side fall on it. We know it's going downhill. You can see that. Ain't no problem there. I just got to be sure it's don't have a whole lot of side fall. This side over here is just, I mean, it's right down on top of rock. I don't want to, hope I don't have to lower it anymore. Maybe, and if it's a little high, I'm just going to let it go, because I mean, they've already took so much dirt off his hill and took it to that other end that they're just about down on rock up here. So anyway, we're going to head that way and check it coming back up the hill. See what it looks like. In that other field, he had pulled his land plane over this, and it rained on it, and then he plowed it after he did that, but it was pretty hard. So. This border here instead of taking it on down, so I'm gonna go ahead and check this out down here, but it don't really matter. There ain't nothing keeping it in here. Pivot way down there, he pumps the water out of this holding tank up here. That's irrigation water, and he's got a pump sitting over there in the with a suction on. This is just tail water. It keeps that one full. That's where his pump's at, and it comes out and goes around this ditch. Looks like it keeps this little one full here. But like I say, he's watering that grass. It's just turned green. Everything else around here is dead except where he's watering where them cows are standing, and they like standing down there underneath it. It's gonna be 90 today, and next couple days it's like in a shower. They stand underneath it down there and get all cooled off. So I don't blame them. I'd be underneath it too if I didn't have to be up here. So nice cool shower, but now when the wind's not blowing, that water, them mosquitoes are starting to get thick around here now. So, like I say, they may shut the water off here in the next couple of days, so he's going to water all he can till then. Once they shut it off, they won't turn it back on till next spring. So. As you can tell, it is coming this way. Pretty good. Alright guys, I think everything's on. I don't have a clue what it's looking like. I hope you can see my hand. If you can see my hand, we're alright. Microphone's on, I see lights are blinking. Okay. I'm finishing this up where we're building the borders, and I thought I'd put the camera on the inside. That way maybe you can see me pull levers. and hopefully kind of see where we're at, where we're going. Okay. I've been in the motor grader probably more than I've been in a long time on this job. I pushed them up, built the berms, and kind of made one pass across them with the bulldozer, just because that's just too far to roll dirt and have anything when you get there. So then I'd finish them up with the motor grader. How's that view? Hopefully better than what it was. You may be seeing this, but I can't help that. Raise you up just a little bit. This will be a surprise to me when I look at it on the computer. So anyway, I like one little old short border. I pushed it up yesterday evening before I quit. So be a lot of turning on it because it's not very long. These other ones, they were probably 1,000 foot long or so, and they varied on width. I think this one right here was the widest one. It was 93 foot wide, and most of them was between 85 to 70 foot wide. And I had to get them where it was either 0 side fall every 100 foot or a 1/10 plus or minus either side. They could live with that. He still has to plow them up now because that ground's like concrete. Plant his grass probably early spring. They work pretty good. It's been a long time since I built borders. Probably 40 years ago. They weren't near this long. They were shorter and maybe just a little bit narrow. But I did this east field first in front of us, and then I come to this west field. I gotta figure out how to get in there. I kind of built myself in a place where I couldn't get out. I should have come down that berm. I can go down and come around the end, come in that other one. I used to run the motor grader all the time, but now just when I get a job where I need it, or if I gravel a big road or something, I'll run it quite a bit. But when I was a hired hand, we had 3 or 4 bulldozers and a motor grader. When we'd build terraces, had enough people pushing, I would just get on the motor grader and keep up with 2 or 3 bulldozers, and that was just, you just run the grader just every day, just hard as you could go, because you had to get a terrace ready to build, and then as soon as the bulldozer got through pushing it up, you had to dress it off and put it on grade, and then still keep 1 or 2 ready for the bulldozer. One motor grader can keep up pretty much 2 bulldozers pushing up terraces. You don't have time to dilly-dally around. You got to get them ready and get them dressed off just as soon as they're knocking down the ridges. Building these is just kind of like really building call them waterways. You build them in a field, and that's what your terraces drain into. You usually build them, well, there's 2 kinds of waterways. You can have one that's a flat waterway with, when you build it, you can have just plus or minus 2/10 in every 100 foot going down the hill as far as sidefall. You just got to have positive grade going down the hill to keep the water moving. They plant grass in it. And I've built waterways up to 150 foot wide. So you get practice on digging one out and finishing it up like that. You pretty well get your level gauge. Now I know nowadays you've got stuff that tells you when you're level, tells you which side to cut, and but I had to learn the hard way. And I can see where that helps on being more efficient and less time. But the way I did these, here's the last one that I did. I made a pass across it, pushing the berm over here, and then this berm was already built from the next one over. And I knew ahead of time that this was the high side a little bit, not a whole lot. So I cut most of my dirt from this side, and I had me a flat place where I backed up. I bladed with the grader and backed up, and then I just cut level, and then I had to re-level it when I bladed it. So you just get that feel once you do it with enough of the time. And then when I got ready to check it out, I just set my level up, got on my Kubota, and I drive every 150 foot, every 100 foot, and I'd take 3 shots across. And then most of the time I didn't have to do nothing. Every now and then there was one spot where I had to maybe cut a 1/10 or 2 off to get it back level. So you need to start knowing what you've got to do. I mean, that's either whether you're using automatic blade control and all that, they've got to take a picture or shots and get that printed up on a map. And we do this, I do the same thing, but I just use my level, knowing what I've got to do beforehand, so you know how to attack it, which way to cut the dirt, which way to push the dirt. The only difference is when you got an automated system, you can either watch a screen or it will move your blade for you when you've got to cut or when you got to fill. And that just takes the human equation out of everything. And I don't know. I mean, you've got people now that they couldn't pull into something, and you say cut 2/10 and fill 2/10 for 100 foot, they wouldn't have a clue what to do. And that's the way that I had to learn to do it. So like I say, I guess it's all right. Basically you sit in there and just drive the thing. So, but things change, and they were just starting to come out with automatic blade control on the motor graders when I started, but where I worked for, we never had that. You just learn to do it, learn how to feel and recognize a hole and a hump, and knew what to do with it when you come across it. So we used to do a lot of town work when I was a hired hand. We cut streets out, parking lots and pads for commercial buildings and stuff. you do enough of it, you get the hang of it. I like doing it. Now it's just mostly built a few runways, dirt runways, but now it's just mostly agricultural stuff like this, leveling off for borders and waterways and terraces, and all that stuff's got to be built to certain grades. A lot of our terraces, if you lay them out with a 10th fall every 100 and you build them the same all the way through there. Now you may have a hump or a hole in between those shots where it was on grade that you've got to fill. Well, you just learn how to do that. Cut the hump out before you build it, or fill the hole in, and then you build the same. You push the same amount of dirt with your bulldozer, and then when you dress it off, chances are it still has that 1/10 a drop per 100 in it, if you made your cuts and fills properly. So one thing I don't like about borders, you don't go through where you're leveling. You got to go up a berm or stop, then figure out how to get turned around because you're closed in. A lot of the stuff where you blade, you can raise up your blade, go through it, and find a turn around and come back and get on your level spot and start again, but not one of these things. And I had to close the end off on this one. The other ones, the ends was open to keep that water from going into that oil field stuff there. You spend most of your time turning around. Then you got to deal with your dirt when you get to the ends. You go slower than what you would if you was out in the open. Now put posts by the irrigation valve so I wouldn't run over the lid and break something. I've come close out here. This is the hardest part, getting started when you're backing up on a berm so you can try to get flat when you're cutting. And this ground got real hard up here on this end of where we're at, because they had a lot going on up here. They took dirt off of it and then put the irrigation pipe in the ground, and had a lot of equipment up here on this end. And I don't know if I could operate something, happen to look at a screen or not. I guess that's like anything else, you'd get used to it, but I'd rather be looking out the window and seeing where I'm going than that screen and watching it. Like I say, it's all about feel. After a while, you do it long enough, you get that feel, what it feels like when something's level. I usually get all of the bottom dressed off, and then I'll go around and fix the berm around it. Them cattle was having a fun time out here on that loose dirt in them borders. I tried to walk it down with my grader, the tire track it, and they'd be walking by there and they'd stick their head in there and go to slinging that dust everywhere. They sure like that. They'll settle down a lot as it rains. I usually build them big enough where you don't have to rebuild them for a long time, because someday this will all be coastal Bermuda in here, and then you don't want to have to come in here and rebuild your border and tear the grass up and everything. So like I say, I've built one system 30-40 years ago, and the borders, they get grass covered up on them, and of course you don't ever usually plow or do nothing to your border itself. And you go by there today and they're just as big as they was 30 years ago. Although most of their work happens down here where it's flat, they bale it for hay, cut it, bale it for hay, and after they get the grass established. So unless they got to come in there and plow it up and start over again because the grass got killed out or something. And I guess automatic blade control, if you can see my hands, I'm always raising or lowering one corner or the other one up. And I guess that's what that automatic blade control does. It you don't have to sit there and keep the blade where it needs to be, or where you think it needs to be, because the machine's doing it for you. Now I want to comment if any old timers probably know this, because they probably had to do it before. It's something that you do with a motor grader, and like I say, that may be a thing of the past. I don't even know if they still do that anymore, but I'll tell you the nickname of what we used to call it, and then if you know the answer, you can put it in the comments saying what I was doing. But it's what are you doing with a motor grader when you're curling the whiskers? And that's all I'm going to say, because if I say too much more, I'll give it away. But that's something that used to do with the motor grader, that I imagine all of that automated stuff took that out of the equation. But again, just send me a comment if you know the answer. If you're an old timer and you used to be a grader operator, you know what you was doing. So, curling the whiskers. See how many of you know what that term means, or what you're doing if you're curling the whiskers with a motor grader. I got into some rock on one border over there. I had to leave it a little high on a spot for about 50 foot, because I mean, it was down on the rock. And there's a little bit in this one. I think I felt something a while ago. Tried to do what I could with the dozer in here as far as cutting this up right here on the end, because you just got too much going on when you get up here with the motor grader. Try to turn around and going up a hill and keeping your blade on the ground. And I may have to bring it back over here to tidy up just a little bit. That's where a skid steer would come in pretty handy, working on these ends, that loose dirt. That dozer's kind of overkill, but that'd be just right for a skid steer to come in here and tidy these ends up. But you work with what you got. Work with what you got. The levers I'm moving the most are the ones on each end, or each side on the end. That's the blade lift. Pushing it forward goes down, pulling it back goes up. There's one of them on each end. There's 5 levers on each side. This one is the side shift, moves the blade back and forth. This one's the circle, the blade turning in a circle, pushing it up, moves it counterclockwise, pulling it down, moves it clockwise. This is your blade tip, and this one's your scar fire if you had one on the back. It won't move because there's no scar fire on the back. The other side, your wheel lean and your side shift makes your moldboard go back and forth. And then your scar fire on the front, I think this is articulate, yeah. Makes you bend in the middle. And that little gauge right there tells you when you're back dead center, it turns red. It's white when you bend it in the middle. But if you're on the road, going down the road in road gear, you know if it's not tracking straight. So, and every now and then you got to adjust it. It moves just a little bit. It's not supposed to, I don't think. That tells you what gear you're in, your RPMs, how fast you're going miles per hour. There's your fuel, your hydraulic temperature, the transmission temperature, and your coolant temperature. Then you can push buttons and pull up different screens and stuff. 2F means forward in second gear. There's 8 gears, 8 forward, 8 reverse. And you got a switch here on by your steering wheel. You can lock the differential in, and that lights up right there. It's locked in right now because I'll hit a hard spot, and if it's not locked in, I go to spinning. I need to do something here. Now this end's going to lean a little bit more because really it's draining the water over into this border here. So it'll be flat up there for a ways, but once it hits that, it's got to have grade coming down this way. It was pretty, before I started, it was pretty flat. But when I checked this border out here beside us, I hopped over here and took a few shots just to know where to get started. Maybe it's right here where it starts getting flat. got 3 pedals, got a brake and a go pedal on the right, and then over here it's kind of where the clutch is, but they don't really call it a clutch because it's a power shift. You can use it when you're going from forward to reverse if you're not stopped. Makes the transition a little bit smoother. You don't have to push it when you're going, if you're in forward going down or up, or reverse going down or up. I usually go up to second, but time I change it to second, I'm already at the other end, so I'm just kind of leaving it in first right now. That way I can start slowing down when I get to this hard hump right here. This right here is hard. And if you go too far forward, you fall off in the ditch and you're going to be high centered. The old motor graders, they were pretty tough to run. Had a 12G cap before I had that, and I drove it. It was like a 70-something model. I was young and it was too, and that thing was pretty. It had hydraulic where you on the levers. Had a cab, but it didn't have an air conditioner. Had a heater in there. You just don't hardly need that much around this part of the country. But it sure got hot in the summertime. You could open up the doors, especially if you was in the field building terraces. You open up the doors, the wind come in, but so did all the dust and the dirt and stuff. Then before that, before they put hydraulics, all of your controls had a big gearbox up here with levers on it, and there was gears in there. Then there was drive lines that run out to everything with little U-joints in there. And it had a motor that would turn, had gears up here, then it had mechanical lean the wheels, turn the blade. They called them knuckle busters because you'd reach up here to do something, and if it caught, it'd push your hand into the cab or that box, whichever was up there, and bust your knuckles. Knuckle busters. Me and Mrs. D, before that, the motor graders, they pulled them with bulldozers, and they had a guy standing back up there, and he was standing on it. It had the frame and wheels, and then he had 3 big steering wheels. He may have had more than that. and he would turn those big wheels, and it would turn your blade or raise it up and down, and they'd pull it with a bulldozer. Somewhere the other day, me and Mrs. D, and they had a picture of one of them on the wall, and I took a picture of it with my phone. It was when the work programs and stuff started. We was at a state park or something, and they showed this, all the roads and stuff was built by the Conservation Corps programs. I believe that's what they called it. Work program. And they showed a guy being pulled with, he was running the motor grader and had another guy on a bulldozer. That was the engine pulling it with a bulldozer. He was building some big diversion terrace somewhere. Now that would work back in. Probably wouldn't have very many people signing up to do that, but I guess when you're nowadays, but you can't eat and you're hungry, you'll work like that. Some of this dirt is just, it looks like water when you're blading it, it just rolls out in front of you. I don't think he's going to be able to plow a lot of these till it rains. So that rains or it starts freezing, the ground will get kind of mellow around here when it starts to freeze and stuff. I got a phone ringing somewhere. That was Mrs. D. She wanted to know, here the other day, now we're not cat people, used to have dogs, but anyway, I got come in from work the other day and there was a cat out by the barn and come up out of the lane there and had 4 little kittens with it. They was a bouncing around and everything. So when I parked my pickup in front of the barn, I had a bag of cat food. They'd went under my storage buildings out there. It's got a concrete slab on. Well, one's on gravel and one's on the concrete slab. So anyway, I put a little food out there by the barn. Well, you can stay out here around the barn. I'm not gonna. Hope they stay around, but they are. They do keep the mice and stuff down. So anyway, Mrs. D called and said, "You been feeding the cats?" I said, "I did the other day, that one time," but she said, well, there was 4 kittens piled up in the outdoor kitchen in a wicker chair there. So I don't know if the mama put them there. The sun shines in that outdoor kitchen and it's kind of warm when it's cool. It's out on the south side of the house. There's always a cat or something hanging around out there, but it's not ours, it's just a wild one. We don't keep them. I usually try to blade everything twice, take it one way and bring it back the other. And hopefully, if there is a little low spot, you'll try to lose some in there. Helps leveling it off from side to side. You gotta love what you're doing if you're gonna do it right. Talking about Cody from Lone Star Digging now, he's got a passion to run equipment, do this kind of work. He's not about to let a handicap stop him from doing it, and that's what it takes. That passion will override any handicap you got if you got a passion to do something. I've witnessed it firsthand. One of my bosses, it was a partnership, and when I first started working for him when I was 15 or 16, I noticed he limped real bad, and it was his left arm and his left leg. And he'd go get in the pickup, and he'd step in, then he'd reach and pull his leg in, and then he'd shut the door with his right hand. And I asked the guy that had hired me, Jesse Flick, I said, what's wrong with him? His name was Harry Martin. And he said when he was young, he fell out off of oil there, broke his neck. And they told him he would never be able to do anything like what he wound up doing. And it was his determination and good Lord's help and everything, but he started running heavy equipment, and somehow or another just that pulling and pushing and using his arm what best he could strengthened his muscles enough where he could run heavy equipment. And I watched him myself climb up on a bulldozer, an older bulldozer that had levers and everything, 2 brakes, 2 levers, a hand clutch, 2 sticks, one for forward and reverse, one for gear selection, then a blade lever. I watched him run a bulldozer when he was living, and he was an older man when he got on that bulldozer, and he could run one just like a young man could without no handicap. So don't ever let that stop you if you got a passion to do something. Just go for it. Kind of takes away excuses of people that said, I can't do this because, no, you just don't want to do it. It's the reason you can't do it. So I didn't want to get on the soapbox, I'm sorry. See if I can tidy up this end just a little bit. picking the front end up off the ground. If I can get it up there a little farther, then I can get on top and go across, and it'll look a little bit better. I hope that's a rock. I don't know what it is. It's awful hard. I think it was. Try again. I don't know what he's going to do around these little valves or lids. I guess you just crank them up and the lid pops up and the water comes out. He may want to take a shovel and dig around the opening of that and put a little concrete, keep from washing the dirt away. That may be what I'd do if that's. Okay. Go this way, it might be a little smoother than trying to bounce across all that stuff. They'll look good when they get grass growing in between them. And he hadn't decided what to do where I quit yet. If he's just gonna plow that up and plant grass in there and just let this water go across. There's a little ditch over there. But this is all so flat around here. He said it stands sometimes in water. But if he can get him some coastal growing down here, and I would level it up a little bit and tilt it to the outside and let it go off in that ditch over there. This is the drain end of them. This is looking back up toward the hill. A pole had to go around, so that's nothing new. I think this is the second week I've been up here, so it took me 2 weeks to do this. It's a nice little job. He's got some more to do on another field back over the hill there. He wanted to see how this turned out, then he'll decide if he wants to do this. It's 100 and something acres over there, and I mean that would be a lot of borders in that many acres. I guess in the long run it would be, once you get that done and you have an outlet for your water, you're not having to pay to pump water through a pivot and water it. And I don't know what that costs an hour. He does, but he says it's pretty expensive watering it through a pivot, when all you'd have to do if it was like this is just open a valve and the water just flows across there. So no electricity involved, no wear and tear on the pivot and things to go wrong, tires to get flat. So anyway, we're gonna get in the pickup and check that out and see if everything works. If it does, that's probably gonna be all for this little project. So appreciate you watching this channel. If you hadn't subscribed, we should do that and hit the like button, share it with all your friends. So till the next video, we'll see what we get into, whether it's the dozer, the motor grader, or some other piece of yellow iron. So remember, keep your blade shiny and your tracks clean. Bye.